Coming up on Council Conversations, we're talking about the White Tank Mountains. Hello, I'm District 6 Councilmember Chris Judd. Welcome to my Council Conversation Show. The White Tank Mountains lie on the western border of our city and offer nearly 37,000 acres of hiking, biking, camping, and other outdoor activities. It's also home to a diverse ecosystem of plants and animals such as deer, bighorn sheep, chuckwallas, and over 100 bird species. Finding a balance between the urban growth and preserving this beautiful natural heritage is very delicate. Today, I have two guests here from the White Tank Mountain Conservancy to talk about that balance. Executive Director Sharma Torrens and Program Manager Laurel Arndt. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
And so to start off with, just let's start easy. How about tell us about the mission of the White Tank Mountains Conservancy.
Yeah, the White Tank Mountains Conservancy is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. It was created in 2014, and the way it was created is very important because it'll kind of go into the background of what I give you. But it was created by nonprofit, public, private, municipal sector leaders. The mission of White Tank Mountains Conservancy, again, it's a nonprofit organization, is to inspire all to conserve and enjoy the cultural and natural resources of the White Tank Mountains, promoting sustainable development, economic opportunities, and quality of life, all while conserving an important regional wildlife corridor.
And they're beautiful mountains, and there's a lot of things to do out there, and the Conservancy is not so much involved in the recreational aspect of it, but if someone were to go visit the White Tank Mountains and they've never been there before, what kind of things can they expect to experience?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that benefits about the White Tank Mountains. A lot of things they can experience. So they're beautiful mountains because of the biodiversity. They're incredibly beautiful. There's a lot of recreating. They can hike, they can bike, they can go out there and just walk around, look at birds, wildlife. Again, a lot of biodiversity. So there's a lot of things they could do out there. There's also cultural resources they could go see that are in the mountains. Wonderful areas to visit. We get 550,000 recreators out in those mountains every year.
So when you say cultural resources, what's a cultural resource look like out there?
So there's 11 plus sites for petroglyphs from the early Hohokam days. So there's a lot of these Native American petroglyphs out there that people also really enjoy going to look at.
Are they hard to get to?
They're not. On our waterfall trail, which is one of the
easy hikes.
Yeah, it's one of the easy hikes. There you go.
Paved.
It's paved. It's in the county regional park, the White Tank Mountains Regional Park. It's paved. It's easy to get to. It's less than a mile, and there are some petroglyphs on that hike as well.
And it's really cool. It's a great place to go see. It's neat if you get some. It's called the waterfall trail because there's a waterfall at the end, and the waterfall is almost never running. Yeah. But if it rains, you can get some.
Monsoon.
But so back to the things the Conservancy is working on. The Conservancy for the past bunch of years has been working really hard on what you call, or what we call the connectivity initiative. So can you tell us a little bit, maybe Laurel, tell us a little bit about the connectivity initiative, what it is, why it's important?
Yeah. So as Sharma mentioned, in 2014, we started the White Tank Mountain Conservancy, and in 2016, we started the Connectivity Initiative, because in addition to all the wonderful things that Sharma talked about our stewards and volunteers doing to keep the white tanks wild, we realized that at the crux of it all was the ability to make sure that we could facilitate the protection and connectivity of wildlife in the white tanks. So in 2016, we started shifting and putting our emphasis on how do we manage growth that's inevitable in the area, and how do we ensure that wildlife in the area that's in the white tanks can migrate and move around across the lower Hassayampa River, further out to the west, to the Belmont Mountains, which is BLM land, up to the Vultures, which will be our next county park, actually is our next county park, and then down even further to the Buckeye Hills and the Harquahalas. So it was really important to make sure that we allow that kind of movement to continue to move. So for about another 7 years to about 2023, a lot of advocacy and education and conversations were happening with the cities, with subdivisions that were coming up, with residents and volunteers to make them aware of this crucial need to maintain connectivity between the white tanks and the mountain ranges out to the further west.
Okay, and so when you go west of the white tanks, it's mostly just open space right now, right?
Yeah, it is.
And so what we're trying to find ways to, and that's all owned by private landowners?
Yeah, we have an amazing, unique opportunity to work on this project and to maintain connectivity. As you said, that whole area falls within private land ownership. It also falls all within the city of Buckeye's jurisdiction. Um, that doesn't happen too often. I'm a planner. I've been working in the Valley for about 25 years, and there was an incredible opportunity about in 2022 when a large portion of this land was purchased by the Howard Hughes Corporation. And while this whole area has been what we called entitled, in other words, in the last 20 years, the cities and the landowners have decided what they wanted to do on that area, and they have a right to develop in that area since it's all private. A large portion of this land was purchased by this developer who said, you know, I think I want to look at this area differently. It's an amazing resource. We've got these mountains. We want to look at development differently. We don't want to do it on the grid. We don't want to surround the mountain and make it inaccessible to humans and wildlife. We all have lived in the Valley for a while, and we know it's happened in some of our preserves where the biodiversity and wildlife is non-existent or down to the minimal, and people don't have access to the mountain. And these developers realized what a resource they had, and they wanted to preserve that. So that partner alone, along with a couple other developers in the area, we started meeting with them as a convener. What we do is we try to convene people together to understand the need for conservation. And all the developers out there got how valuable the white tanks were and how important it was to have a goal of making sure that wildlife could move from the west side of the white tanks all the way over to the Belmonts, to the public lands that were out there.
And so now the landowners are now actively engaged with the Conservancy and helping figure out how the map should look to allow wildlife to move back and forth.
Exactly.
Is that right?
Exactly. And so we spent about 18 months working with when it comes down to probably about 5 major landowners, including the State Land Department and the BLM and the BOR and the 4 major landowners out there, to look at opportunities to co-locate this wildlife corridor that would link the white tanks over to the Belmonts. And when we mean co-locate, we look for areas where there's not high development potential, or there is such resources in the area that you couldn't develop on anyway, such as floodplains or topography, or just areas that are not prime development. Because of course, nobody wants to give up prime development for anything these days. So it was really important for us to identify, with the help of our developers, sit in the room, go back and forth with our partners at Game and Fish to understand where is the wildlife moving. What are the resources that those wildlife the need for habitat, for mating, for food, for storaging, for just moving around? Identify those and look how they laid on the land. And coincidentally, not a surprise, animals like to move where there's water and lots of vegetation. And in this particular case, some of those areas are not highly developable lands because they're in a floodplain.
Yeah, and they're washes, right?
And they're washes, exactly. Yeah. And there was even power line corridors to look at. The Central Arizona project is up there, which traditionally we would see to be a barrier to animals moving. But in fact, animals are smart, just like humans. They'll move where they can find a way. And we have a lot of data and research being done by our partners at the Game and Fish to document where these animals are moving across the siphons, across the cap. And in fact, the cap is going to probably become a significant part of our solution. So after about 18 months, we laid out, for lack of a better word, a big wildlife corridor. It's about 13 miles long. It's with a buffer, because you need buffers. You don't just give it just a freeway. You need a little bit of space on each side of it. Is anywhere from about a half a mile to a mile wide.
Okay. And when you say the cap, you're talking about the canal out there.
Yeah, the Central Arizona project, exactly.
And the canal, there's actually dedicated wildlife crossings on it, isn't there?
Well, they are crossings. They're culverts, they're siphons, and they are being utilized for vehicles to go across for maintenance, but also for a variety of other reasons. Going across the Hacienda and some of the major washes, they just couldn't run the cap across it, so they actually ran the cap underground. And on top of that is a perfect place for our large species. We're most concerned about the movement of mule deers, but we now have bobcats, mountain lions, and even some bighorn sheep, as well as many other smaller animals such as javelinas, kit foxes. Of course, our Sonoran Desert Tortoise moves through there too. And they've all figured out how to utilize that, and it's our job to preserve those areas and those opportunities that they're already using, not forcing them to go somewhere else, but observe where they're going and work with our partners to understand how we can keep them moving in that area.
And so, I mean, the connectivity initiative has been just really the biggest part about what we've been doing, and the landowners have been great to work with. The government entities, the different entities have all been great to work with. If the connectivity initiative were not to come about, if we weren't able to create these connections, what would the eventual result be for the mountain? Or what do you suspect it would be?
Well, we don't need to look far to know what'll happen. We have plenty of examples, and the biodiversity is gone, the ecology changes, and that would be really tragic for this area because in the West Valley, and in fact, I would say in the whole valley, this is probably one of the last areas of critical importance for maintaining connectivity out to the further west, where we have a lot of public lands, whose development potential is completely different. So this particular area needs to be preserved. So if we don't maintain connectivity, we will lose mule deer. We will certainly lose some of our larger ungulates, animals with hoofs, our javelina, even down to kit foxes. We may never see bobcats or mountain lions in there. And then what we'll be left with is a really low area of species, kind of like if you go to any of our preserves right now, Camelback or Squaw Peak, you'll see plenty of lizards. You might see some snakes. You might see some coyotes. You certainly won't see any Sonoran desert tortoise there. But we'll really end up having a stale mountain. And when we don't have the proper interaction between animals and the landscape, we lose a lot of other ecological benefits. Everything from how we disperse seeds so we can have the beautiful wildflowers that we have in the white tanks, to just the movement of animals, birds. Birds don't come in and they don't deposit seeds. You know, when you don't have that whole range of species to have the circle of life, then you end up with a really small, stale population there. And for all intents and purposes, the mountain becomes quite inactive, and I don't want to say the term dead, but it's no longer wild.
Well, dead's a good way to put it. I mean, yeah, because now it's a vibrant, wild mountain.
It is.
In fact, one of our favorite things to say about the white tanks is to stay wild.
They are one of the most beautiful regional parks that we have in the whole county.
And so, as a nonprofit, you face a lot of struggles with funding, especially in today's environment. So what kind of things are you doing to sustain yourselves?
Yeah. So as a 501c3 nonprofit organization, we subsist on grants and donations. So we seek a lot of different federal, state, other grants. And then we also have municipal, corporate, and private donors. And if folks want to help us with that, they can go to our website at wtmconservancy.org and click on the donate button. Again, they can get involved if they just want to give up their time. They can volunteer with our 3 activities. We've also got a White Tank Wild Day fundraising opportunity coming up too as well. So.
Okay, so what is that?
So the White Tank Wild Day, so just for a little bit of background, it's our own giving day for White Tank Mountains Conservancy. It was created in 2021. The mayors of Surprise, Goodyear, Buckeye, and Peoria came together, and they basically proclaimed Earth Day, which is April 22nd, as White Tank Wild Day. So we've been using that as our own giving day. We did this last year, and we got a match with some of our great partners, Terra Vallis, the community of Howard Hughes. Other corporate partners came in. We had a private individual donor, and we were able to raise $43,000 last year. This year, our goal is $50,000, and again, with corporate, Terra Vallis has came in with another $10,000 match, and some other corporate partners, and our goal is $50,000. So folks who would like to give on our own giving day, White Tank Wild Day, Earth Day, we would highly encourage that.
And I also want to acknowledge the past donors who've made our project go forward. And the biggest donor, of course, is the Nina Mason Pulliam Charitable Trust. Without them, we could not have achieved the wildlife concept that we did in 18 months. They funded not only our work to interface with the developers in the city of Buckeye and convene and collaborate, but they also given us enough money to have Arizona Game and Fish to go out and do research. They do aerial surveys, they do night vision surveys, they do road surveys, and they've been able to document all the work that we need to show the science behind why we're doing this. We're also looking to grants from our other partners too. Howard Hughes has been a great funder. We have other developers such as LKY. We have other parties that are interested in giving their time and participating in this process, which time is almost as valuable as money sometimes, and it's all relative to what we need. So we've been really blessed with the funding grant opportunities that we had. Going after grants is hard work. Everybody probably knows that. So we really do rely on the corporate donations that we have and the individual donations and the fundraisers that we had. We had an event out at the Corral just a month and a half ago that was so much fun and was such a success and really showed up who loves the white tanks in the West Valley. So
Yeah, and the event at the Corral was a lot of fun. It was at the base of the White Tanks, right there at the Corral, the new, newish establishment that opened out there that hosts events.
Yeah.
Are you planning on doing that again?
Yes, that's our Diamond in the Desert event, and that is going to be, we're still choosing a date, but probably the end of October this year. Yeah, at the Corral at White Tank Ranch, right at the base of the beautiful White Tank Mountains. Live silent auction, dinner, dancing, a lot of fun. Yeah, and we'd encourage people to come out to that as well. We'll have information about that soon.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Laurel and Sharma.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions or comments for me, I would love to hear from you. You can call or email me anytime, and I welcome you to sign up for my newsletter, which is filled with the latest city news and information. To sign up, just visit my website and click the Sign Up for D6 Notifications link. Thank you for watching.